In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 ways to step outside yourself and answer the question, am I good at music? You may think my opinions on this subject are nonsense, and that's fine. The reason I felt compelled to make a video on this subject is because this is something that I've thought about my entire life. And once I crossed the threshold to really feeling comfortable about what I offer musically to the world, these 5 things stood out to me. Number 1, record yourself. Seems simple, right? You might notice that when you're practicing, you'll feel like, this isn't really coming out the way I want. This hand is weak. These doubles with my foot aren't really sounding so smooth. And if it feels that way, that's probably valid. However, sometimes your perception of how you sound is completely off. And no matter how many people might compliment your playing, until you hear it, it's kind of hard to believe it. It was for me at least. So if you already have somewhat of a grasp on the things that are not amazing about your playing, sure, that recording is just going to kind of reinforce that. But you're not just going to know that something's not quite there, you're going to hear exactly why it's not quite there. Is it rushing? Is it dragging? Does your foot start to lose some strength after you play more than a couple beats in a row? Not only what's lacking, but how is it lacking? And then, if you keep practicing whatever it is that you feel like you need to improve on, and you record every single time you practice, you're going to notice that incremental change. The only way you can be sure is to record yourself. I recorded myself every single time I played, period, when I was in college. That meant rehearsals, practicing by myself, performances in front of a large or medium or small crowd, all of the above. Sometimes I thought I sounded great, and it actually sucked. Other times, I was like, that was so bad, I wasn't feeling it, I sort of just stepped outside myself a little and just wasn't in the moment. And then I listened back to the recording, and it's one of the best things I ever played. When I used to record my performances in college, there would be a handful of drummers that were switching off. So sometimes I wouldn't know which drummer it was I was listening to. You might even surprise yourself by listening back and being like, who's this drummer? They sound great. Oh wait, that's me. Tip number 2. I'm sure this is going to be controversial. Take cues from musicians you respect. Now, I emphasize musicians you respect because as soon as you put yourself in front of people, the criticisms are going to run the gamut. This was a thing that really got me down in college. Someone who I knew was very accomplished and very well respected would critique me or really maybe just kind of downright, tell me I sucked. And I knew that these were accomplished, respectable musicians with incredibly valid opinions. So I hung off of every word. Every criticism I got, I took that as the gospel truth. But then I started to notice that different artists that I respected had different takes. Some of them even contradicted each other. So then I had to step back and take stock of whose opinion I was taking as the gospel, and moreover, should I take any opinion as the gospel? But thankfully, I started to notice that a lot of the musicians I respected the most, or at least the musicians who I artistically identified with the most, they could see the quality in what I was doing, even if they still had a lot of critiques. There's a huge difference between someone telling you, you've got a lot of work to do, but there's a lot good there, and I think you could really be something if you put your mind to it, and someone saying, you suck, I've lost interest. At the college I went to, they even had these sheets where they would sort of write comments about your live performances. They'd have a panel of teachers, just writing these criticisms, and they would have these categories like creativity, improvisation, which right there I was thinking, wait, creativity and improvisation, how could you be creative but then your improvisation isn't good? I don't get it. Regardless, they would all have different opinions. I love the stuff you're playing on your snare underneath the soloist. I hate the stuff you're playing underneath the soloist. Your snare drum comping's too busy. Your snare drum comping is amazing. You'll hear these contradictory opinions all the time. Number 3, when roadblocks present themselves, does that motivate you more or less? Practicing is very frustrating. It can be especially frustrating on drums. You're trying one thing with your right hand, one thing with your left foot, etc. Even if you can do it, if it's slightly imperfect, it'll make you crazy. However, you could flip this around and say, now I know exactly what to work on. For me personally, it helps to say, I have to work on A, B, and C, and dedicate 80% of my practice time to that. And those things might shift over time, but if you focus in on something that's really hard or that's just really bothering you about your playing, and you just go at it, and you don't care how much progress you see in 3 days or 3 months or 3 years, I mean, it's kind of hard not to care about 3 years. You get the point. You're gonna improve. Simply identifying that about yourself is gonna make you improve, to some degree at least. So just go at it, hammer away, and don't worry about how long it takes. Don't worry about if it just seems like it's not improving. Who cares? You should be practicing it anyway. Number 4, do ideas present themselves very naturally to you, or do you feel like you need to fish for them? Now, don't get me wrong, writer's block can affect everyone. So I'm not trying to say that if you have writer's block or you have periods in your life of not feeling motivated, that means you should give up. Definitely not the case. But at some point, there's gotta be a fire lit. There's gotta be a core vision, whether that's long-term or short-term. If music really inspires you at your core, ideas are just going to present themselves. And last but definitely not least, number 5, can you imagine doing absolutely anything else with your life? I'm sure most of you would agree that the amount of passion you have for music is crippling. What else could possibly make someone want to pursue a career that is extremely hard to make a living in? But if you're like me, you remember those early moments in your childhood when you discovered music that really struck a chord, no pun intended, made you feel emotions you had never felt before. It would seem to me that if you've experienced that feeling at all in your life, it would be hard to pursue anything else other than a career in music. That said, you might want to keep in mind how hard it is, because some people are perfectly content saving a spot in their life for music, but not making it the core of their existence, and not trying to make all of their money off of it. I know so many great musicians in amazing bands that have day jobs, and it actually helps them to facilitate a lot of things that need to happen to make their bands blow up. And when I'm feeling super broke, which is all the time, sometimes I think, what if I had pursued a different route? But then I snap back into reality. I'd be miserable. And if you can't handle the potential lifelong insecurity of finances, you might want to try a different profession. If you like this video, I highly recommend this video, How to Play What You Hear. Thanks for watching.